That's it. We are starting to record now. So this is the more educational side of what we do. But I really, by the time you get to 6:30 on the Wednesday evening, I'm already on my 4th wine tasting this week. I think we need to drink. Okay, most importantly, we need to relax. We need to wind down, and that's why I called it wine therapy. You must interrupt me. You can ask me as many questions as you like, and to Angus and Luke. I will make sure I'm finished by roughly 7:30, but we'll stay around for a few minutes afterwards to answer more questions. Now really is the time to ask as many questions as you like. Don't feel embarrassed. Don't feel stupid. I'm gonna take you through four lessons or sessions of wine therapy of Taste Lab Live. We're going to start this time with the whites and basics of wine tasting. We're then going to go on to reds next time. So we're going to really discover the styles and types of wine, some famous grapes and how they express themselves in some wines from what we call our sommelier selection, which is a restaurant list of wines from our website. And then in sessions 3 and 4, session 3, I'm going to cover just some wines I like, to be honest, and talk a bit about ways of vineyard viticulture, as it's called, so the agricultural viticulture and the winemaking styles, in particular covering things like vegan wines, vegetarian wines, natural wines, kosher wines, styles of winemaking. And then in the 4th session, because we're still in the sort of lovely cold winter of COVID lockdown and so on, I'm going to just do some big reds from the New World, from Argentina, Chile, and places like that, just to finish us off with a bang on the session. So let's just take a poll first of all, including the people who are hiding in the back there, who don't have their videos on. Has anybody here never done a wine tasting before? Now, the method of tasting, has everybody never done a wine tasting before? No, nobody waving. Okay. Oh, a wave there. Thank you. Yeah, please don't. I'm going to start with Nathan's 4 S's of tasting. So I'm going to start with some basics, but please don't feel patronized. Don't feel I'm too slow. Hurry me up if you want to. Just ask me loads of questions. Tell me just to hurry up, basically. So I want this session will cover some of the basics of how to taste wine, because I started wine tasting when I was living in Germany as a salesman working for Oxford Instruments in those days. And I happened to live down by the Rhine River near Frankfurt, actually, a town called Wiesbaden. I used to go, I was lonely, I was only 20. I was selling during the days, and at the weekends I went down to the river and met with all these winemakers who had these wooden huts called Holzstuben, and you went around with a glass with a Zehntel, 1/10 of a litre, so 10 centiliters of wine, and you'd buy the glass, and then you'd fill up with the wine, and basically it was a good way of me chatting with people in German and learning about their wine, and that's how I got into it. I only did a formal wine lesson many years later when I was living in Cambridge, and I actually went to Hills Road Sixth Form College, if any of you have ever lived in Cambridge, and actually went to evening classes, and then later did my Wine and Spirits Education Trust, WSET 2 and 3, and did the more sort of formal training, and that was well before starting the wine business. But it's a good doing it straight off is a great way of learning how to go about it. So, any immediate questions, or I'll go on to the four S's of tasting. Cool.
So can I just suggest everyone has at least the first bottle open? I think we're going to start with the Makon Blanc, Nadine Ferrand.
That's it.
So yeah, pour yourself a glass and have a good sniff as we go.
Yeah, she showed you.
Okay, so the Makon Blanc, okay, which is Nadine Ferrand. It's the one with a black label and gold writing on it. So to start off with the accoutrement that I have for wine tasting, I've got this rather nice Le Creuset corkscrew. I've got a little foil cutter that I like because I do lots of tastings and it stops me cutting my fingers on all of the foils. Not really necessary, but quite nice. I have a glass of water because I was told you should drink about as much water as wine. And I have this dirty beast thing, which is my spittoon, which always remains unused. But anyway, if you're doing tasting and you want to spit the wine out again, then you need to have a spittoon or a dog to lick it all up or something like that. Anyway, however you organise your home hygiene, that's really up to you guys. But we're going to start with the Makon Blanc. It's a very good idea. We've been speaking for a few minutes now, so it's time to get some wine in our glasses. And I open the bottle. So first of my foil cutters, then my corkscrew. And then what I'm going to do is I've got these lovely Zalto glasses, if you can see these Austrian glasses, very nice. The ideal is to have, let's get in focus here. Okay, there we are. The ideal is to have a nice big, like for these sessions, 3 identical glasses, if you can. If you don't, just one is fine, or a couple. And don't fill the glass too much. Resist that temptation. This is a wine tasting, not Saturday night down at the pub. Okay, do Saturday night down at the pub after we're finished. Okay, use this bit for tasting. So what I do is I put about half an inch. It depends on the shape of your glass, but these ones have got a nice taper, what we call a nice big bowl. It's a bowl that's just about big enough for my nose, actually. It's designed specially for that. And basically, it allows me to insert my proboscis in when we come to the schnozzle bit, the big smelling bit. So I'm going to switch to a couple of slides here. I'm going to see if this works. Right, okay. Luke, I'm first of all going to try this version, and you can be my person to tell me if this is actually working. Let's see if I can do the slideshow from current slide. Does that work?
It looks good. Yeah, here we are. That's great. Yeah, it fills the screen.
Okay, so there you are. So, right, so let the romp begin. Okay, so as I said, intro we've done. I'm going to talk about types and styles of white wine, and that's going to help you understand white wine and also how to shop for white wine on our website. I'm going to cover now how to taste wines, so that we've got the sort of the basics in place. And then I think I'm going to swap the second and third wines from the order that they were on your sheet, but if you get confused by the second one, then you drank too much of the first one, basically. So we're starting here with Nadine Ferrand Makon Blanc. We're then going to do this. It's a bit of a toss-up, actually. We'll take a poll afterwards as to was I right to change the order. We'll do the Sauvignon de Touraine, which is the one with the screw cap, and then we're going to go to the Clemens Busch Riesling Trocken. Okay. So I'm going to show you this now, and I'm going to come back to it occasionally. And whenever you want me to come back to it, I'll scurry around and find it. But when we talk about how to taste wine, there's actually 4 S's, and that's the way I go about it. It's see it, sniff it, slurp it, and savour it. And you'll soon find out, and I'm looking to see on the Zoom who's overfilled their glasses. Because you'll find when you get to the sniff it, if you've overfilled the glasses, the dog's going to have something to lick on the floor already. Okay.
There's a good way out of it, though. Luckily, if you've overfilled it, you just need to
just drink a bit.
That's it. Yeah. Get rid of the excess.
The mark of a good wine tasting is you get started to drink within the first 10-15 minutes, rather than hear somebody rabbit on about bouquets and nose and Parker points and things like that. So we're going to get some wine down our gullets now. Okay. So how we see wine, so the look of the wine is I hold the glass. I've only got about half an inch of wine, a centimetre and a bit, maybe a centimetre and a half of wine in my glass. I tip it ideally over a white tablecloth, a white piece of paper, a white serviette, and I look at the rim and the core. So the rim is the bit where it's coming towards the edge of the glass, and the core is the deepest bit in the middle. And this wine is we describe this wine as being watery pale. It's translucent. It's almost invisible at the edge. I've just found a little thing on my glass, actually. It's watery white at the rim, and in the middle, it's a beautiful slightly greenish tinge of pale lemon is the way I describe it. Would you agree, gurus?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very slightly greenish tinge, but mostly really a pale lemon.
Pale lemon, I reckon, yeah.
Sounds like a good consensus there. Yeah, if anyone else picks anything else out,
Okay.
I'd be surprised.
Now, when you do your formal training with your WSET courses, they actually give you a sheet and you have to follow their sheet. But we're not going to do it that much, but I will sort of use a bit of that terminology as I go through, not because we're teaching a formal course here, but just to give you some of the lingo, because one of the hardest things with wine tasting is to describe to other people what you think of a wine. And so that's why I am going to focus on it, particularly in this session. I'm going to focus a bit more on how to go about the tasting. So I've looked at the rim, which is very pale, almost like, completely clear. And the center, the core, is still a pale lemon, very pale lemon, with a slightly greenish tinge. And if you can't see that, then get a white serviette or napkin or piece of paper. Now we're going to do the sniff it bit. This is where the size of my nose and the size of the glass become quite relevant, because there are two ways of doing it. You can either do it on a table, or I'm doing it in my hand because I'm on Zoom here. I swill the glass around. Any organic chemists here? I'm a physicist, okay, not an organic chemist, but the organic chemistry of this, if any of you know about organic chemistry, is if the wine is I want the wine to be a bit warmer than I'd usually drink it for this reason. I want the volatile molecules, the aromatic molecules, which will come off the wine so that I can smell it better. And the tulip shape of the glass, or the inverted shape of the glass, this narrows towards the top, allows me to, it concentrates the bouquet, okay? Not the hyacinth bouquet, but just the bouquet.
Bucket, Mrs. Bucket.
Exactly, Mrs. Bucket. Now then, what I do is I insert my gigantic nose into the even bigger, luckily, bowl of the glass, because if the nose was bigger, the glass would break. And I get a whiff of that wine. Does anybody want to describe the nose they get from this wine for me? Don't be shy. I'll put this up so that you can get some ideas.
I can smell lemon. It's just lemony.
I think that's a
Are
good
we allowed to comment, Nathan?
Now that it's come up, I can smell the grapefruit as well. I'd say it's grapefruit. You haven't tasted.
Unless you make a suggestion to me.
Apple? Getting some apple?
I can't. I would say I can smell the lemon.
Any other comments, team?
I think definitely some what you usually get from wines in the Macon typical notes. Definitely some nice melony notes in there, and slightly the riper. Definitely some of those citrus notes as well, as you guys have been talking about.
There's an awful lot.
Yeah, and what's lovely about this is there's a lot of nose for this. It's very. But by the way, if you can't smell it, can you please get a COVID test? Okay, because there's actually quite a lot of smell to this wine. By the way, so that you know as well, and it was in Charlie's instructions when he emailed you round. We drink white wines a bit warmer in a wine tasting than we would when we're having them with a meal. And the reason for that is exactly what we're talking about. It helps you to smell more easily. It is the chemistry of it. It's that these volatile aromatic molecules evaporate more easily from the surface of the wine at a higher temperature and with swilling it around. So yes, we have here, and why I'm showing you this is, I will come back to this occasionally during these 4 sessions. There's a marvelous kit. I can't remember how much it costs now. It must be quite expensive. When I bought mine, it was probably 5 shillings and 6pence. But I think probably now there must be what, £300 or £400, Luke? I don't know.
Yeah, they are the native vin.
The native vin, exactly.
Yeah, they're about 300 quid, I think.
They're quite an investment. They're handy. They're quite an investment.
There are various kits they do, but the big one has got 54 different smells in it in little bottles that are guaranteed to last for 5 years. What I like about it is it helps give you a structure of going from fruity notes to floral notes, vegetal and spicy notes, animal notes and roasted notes. And then you can use these little vials, these little scent vials to actually calibrate your nose, which in my case is a lot of calibration. But it's a really good way of seeing what you think of wines. See, the problem is the moment Luke, Angus, or I say it smells like X, you'll automatically think that, and it's auto-suggestive. And again, a bit of the psychology of that, everybody, is actually the nose is one of your least sensitive of your 5 senses. It's not your strongest sense. We all know dogs and bees and other animals have got stronger, better differentiation of sense than we have. And that's why when you do wine tasting classes and wine exams, then and Angus and Luke have both done. Angus has done the advanced WSET. Luke's done his diploma. You just do a lot of tasting and describing things according to a standard method. But the moment some wine snob or wine expert or whatever tells you, "Oh, this tastes like so, this smells like so," oh yes, everybody then goes, "Oh, Mr. Houghton, Buffton, Tufton says I'm supposed to say that this smells of hawthorn, acacia, licorice, and musk." Okay. This does not smell of hawthorn, acacia, licorice, and musk, by the way. So if any of you think that, again, COVID test time, please. Okay. For me, as Angus has said, we're talking about the Chardonnay grape here. So we're on white wines, and I've got 3 famous grapes this evening. Chardonnay grape, perhaps the most famous of white grapes, is actually the 2nd most grown of white grapes in the world. Originated in Burgundy, so we're in its heartland now. Widespread around the world, one of the most popular white grapes. What I love about Chardonnay is it's what we call a terroir transparent wine. It shows itself by the land it's on, the geology, the soil. It shows itself through the climate and the weather that it experiences as it grows. And it hugely shows itself through its winemaking. So it's one that's very much it's a canvas on which the vineyard and the winemaker paint themselves. Really quite beautiful. Let's go. These are, oh yeah, here we are. Look at this. We're covering Chardonnay, Riesling, and Sauvignon Blanc. Okay. I ran out of energy when I got to 26, just looking on white grape varieties on our website today. Okay. And we have a short list of wines. How many thousand grape varieties? I didn't even bother to look it up, Luke or Angus. Do you know? It's many, 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 many thousands.
Luke, do you know that one?
No, I'm afraid not. Used for viticulture, yeah.
There are 3,000 native varieties of grape in Italy alone. Okay, so we can't do a comprehensive guide to all white grapes. I've chosen 3 of the most famous ones. Generally, on this side, are sort of they're not in order. They're in order as how I thought of them when I was typing it up. But basically, on this side, sort of they got more famous. There were more famous ones on this side. I was sort of go, oh yeah, Müller-Thurgau, I must include it. Very kindly, the amazing Luke has done this for me, which is great. Now we can see where this has come from. So it's the Chardonnay grape from a beautiful small house with Nadine and Marine Ferrand, a fourth generation producer. They're in the Makon, which is the southernmost bit of Burgundy. Burgundy is big for us, big deal at the moment. Where are we? Yeah, there's Paris. Oh no, yeah, Chablis. Oh, Château, gosh, yeah. And then here's the town of Dijon, which you go to on the TGV when you come from Paris. And then you go to Gevrey-Chambertin and Chambord-Musigny and Montréal-Saint-Denis, all these places in the Côte de Nuit. Beaune, Pommard, Volnay, Sontenay, and then the whites, obviously, of Chassagne and Chassagne-Montrachet, Poligny-Montrachet, Meursault, and so on, Saint-Aubin and Saint-Romain in this area. The Côte Chalonnaise, where Roulis and Mercury and other famous names come from, and then the Maconnais, where we are now. And in fact, if I remember correctly, and Angus and Luke will correct me, I think that this domain is actually based in Puy-Fusset.
That's correct, yeah. So I'm just going to point out here, in my haste to change the format of this, I've left the click to add text, so I can see it. So apologies for that in the centre. But no yeah, so as you said, the Puy-Fusset, yeah, that's right. So Nathan's highlighted it. It's right at the bottom of the Maconnais part of the region that you can see just there. So you've got the large, full Burgundy map on the top left, and then just the zoomed in one to mainly the Maconnais and the Chalonnais as well.
And
over on the right, and you've got the key geographical feature there from Pre-Frise is the rocky outcrop. This is looking from Nadine's vineyards, and then this is actually Nadine's lovely manicured hands here as well, holding some very ripe-looking Chardonnay grapes in the centre.
So yeah, the expensive bit up here is the Pouligny and Chassagne-Montrachet in yellow that you can see. So it's the bottom of the Côte de Beaune, and then going through the Roulis, Givry, Montagny, Bussy, Mercury area here in blue, and then Mâconnais. And to give you an idea, it's about 50 minutes drive from there down to there. Okay, maybe an hour or so. But I realized, by the way, I'm hoping that you've all slurped some, because I realized that after telling everybody you should drink something, so as you make sure that if you were on dry January, you're not anymore. I didn't even get as far as the slurp it bit. So I'm now going to do that, because we went straight off into talking about the wine, sorry. So we did our see it bit, we did our sniff it bit, and we got those, I got melon, I got citrus, and I got a bit of red apple. And then we did the colors before, the pale lemon with a little tiny green tinge. Now my slurp it bit, anybody here been to Japan? Okay, it's the most polite thing. I've been to Japan 27 times. The most polite thing you can do in a Japanese restaurant is to slurp your noodles. Okay, and when we taste wine, we slurp our noodles, and we do it this way, and it will be very noisy.
I think mine will go all over the place.
Okay. This is not the way you taste wine on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. If it's your first date and you do it that way, you will not get a second date. Okay. But this is the way to taste wine. Okay. What I'm doing, my scientist bit in me, is I'm allowing the whole volume of the wine to explore my palate, to go to the back and sides of my palate, to coat my tongue, go round it, all of that lovely flavor, that beautiful texture. And oh gosh, yeah, there's a lot of that, the acidity of it, gentle acidity, it's not sharp acidity, the gentle acidity that makes my tongue salivate. And above all, makes me want more. And that's why you got a whole bottle of it, okay? There is a lot of palate to that wine. There's a lot of texture. There's a lot of palate. That quite light to medium bodied. A lot of that slightly underripe honeydew melon in there. Actually, the apples go a bit from green, slightly red, but mostly greenish, slightly red apples. I like to see Chardonnay on a dimension of citrus, green apples to red apples, which is about the fermentation, which we won't have time to talk about right now, but it's about the fermentation how the sugar in the grapes gets fermented into malic acid initially, and then from malic acid into lactic acid in this sort of second stage of fermentation. This has got probably no malolactic fermentation, and white wines may go through the first bit and not the second bit. And it's the more we don't have time now to go into all this detail, but Luke and Angus, I think this is mallow.
I think this is a bit of lees aging rather than mallow.
Exactly, that's it. It's actually nicely, for a nice young wine, it's actually quite nicely aged. And the lees aging means it's had time to sit in probably a steel tank in this case. It's not been in a wooden barrel. It's had time to sit on its dead yeast cells, which are known as the lees, if you know your Shakespeare, lees, L-E-E-S. And what that's done is it's what's called autolytic complexity. Autolysis, again, chemistry lesson we're doing this evening, is all about things that digest themselves without oxygen. So the dead yeast cells create that slightly richer texture, which for a basic Makon wine is really, really nice, actually. I think, to be honest, Angus, there's just a touch of that. It just had a little bit that's let it thicken up a bit. So here we are, 4th generation family, old vines, nicely concentrated. The older the vines, like us human beings, when we're very young, like Angus, we're very productive and leafy. And produce lots and lots of leaves and lots of grapes. Okay, when we're old and wizened like me, Our rootstock is all gnarled. Okay, the grapes are smaller and less intense, but the grapes are smaller and even deeper in color. But my God, they make a better wine. Because the intensity of the juice coming out of those grapes improves with the age to a certain extent. Obviously, Chardonnay vines don't go on forever. So my last bit of my 4 S's is my savour it. My savour it is the hardest one to explain on Zoom, to be honest. But let's go and just have another slurp, and now we'll feel what's left on your palate afterwards.
I'm just going to jump in there. We've had a couple of comments on the chat from Yvonne. Initially said apricot in there, and then Dale said peach. And I think there's a little bit of apricot. It's not the very kind of extreme ripe end of Chardonnay, but I think there's something that just pushes over maybe from apples and citrus. And like I said, it's not the most aromatic, super ripe stone fruits, but I think there's something there. It's definitely nice and ripe, and it's 2018, nice warm vintage. So so I think those are good calls. If you can smell them, then they're there.
Cool. So does anybody have any, I realize I've used up about half my time, so I ought to go on to the next 2 wines, but does anybody have more questions about Chardonnay, or should we weave them in with Sauvignon Blanc? I'll weave them in with Sauvignon Blanc. So this one's easy to open. So if you had far too much to drink the first one, you have a screw cap to cope with on the second one. And the one we're going to open now is the Château de la Presle, the Sauvignon de Touraine, 2019. I think is whoops. It's warmed up a bit, so I did a pre-tasting of this.
Sauvignon.
Is that the water you talking?
Sauvignon.
Yes, the Sauvignon Blanc is the Sauvignon Blanc. So it's in the different order from your email. By the way, we always seem to manage to do this. I should explain, by the way, why do people doing wine tasting suddenly change the order? Well, firstly, it's completely my fault. I put them in the other order when I gave the email to Charlie to send out. But the other reason is that when somebody like like Luke or Angus or me start a tasting, we taste the wines first and then go, oh yeah, I think I better do it in this order instead. So that's why we will often surprise you. With 3 wines, you shouldn't get too confused. Anyway, Sauvignon Blanc, another green-skinned grape variety. This one comes originally from Bordeaux, actually. So we're doing famous regions here, but actually we're not in Bordeaux. This wine actually comes from the Loire Valley. But the grape variety Sauvignon Blanc originates there. Probably gets its name from the words sauvage and blanc, so wild white, sauvage blanc, where it originally started. There's a science called ampelography, which is all about understanding grapes. If you're really nerdy, I got into geology more than ampelography because I've got friends who are geologists, so I like tramping over fields and trying to work out what the underlying soil structure is. But ampelography, really difficult actually. It's the study of all of these different grape varieties. Nowadays, of course, with gene sequencing, you can actually understand what they are. In the past, it was all done by leaf shapes and the shapes of bunches and things. Why are these grapes called what they are? A lot of it goes in history. But anyway, possibly a descendant of another grape called Sauvignon, which you still see. Grown all over the world. So Bordeaux, Loire, we're doing today, Washington, California, New Zealand, South Africa, Chile, Romania, Canada, Australia, and you name it, everywhere. But we're in what I think is a very nice area for making Sauvignon Blanc. And in fact, we have got now. Can you remember where the Touraine? Here we are. Luke.
So yeah, we are just to the east of Vouvray. So we with the Loire Valley. It kind of goes from Muscadet wines and then through to Sauvignon Blanc and then Chenin Blanc and then back to Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah. So at this end, the British end, or the bit where it's hard to send things in and out of at the moment. Okay. The Nantes end is where you get Muscadet de Sèvres et Maine and various other wines. You then go through Angers, and then Tours, Chinon, Bourgogne, very, very famous for their amazing reds made from the Cabernet Franc grape. Vouvray, tremendous whites from the Chenin Blanc grape in Vouvray, Sauvignon, and Jasnier. You've done your exams more recently, Luke, so you're going to pick me up on all of these. And then very, very famous areas here. This Touraine area is a more generic area, but I think it's very, very attractive wine here. And then 3 very famous appellations here also for Sauvignon Blanc. The 3 tremendous areas of Sancerre, Puy-Fumé, and Menetou-Salon, which are in this area. And as you can see, this long area all the way along the Loire starts in the region of Nantes, Anjou, Saumur, Touraine, and then the centre region. So let's do our see it, sniff it, slurp it, savour it. The see it bit, actually quite surprising when I opened this, because the colour, I don't know about you, Luke and Angus, but do all of you get a quite surprising colour for me for this one, unexpected? It's slightly more gold than I expected. Whereas the first wine we had was pale and lemony. Do you get that slight golden tinge?
I've got to be honest, I don't have this wine, and I haven't had it for a little while. I haven't got this one in front of me.
Okay. Does anybody else get that, team? Do you see it? Whereas the first one was pale lemon and goldy, and greeny, slight green tinge. This one's got a definite sort of like a white gold, not very deep gold, but slight sort of white gold here.
Julia's posted that. So it's very golden.
Thank you.
Yeah, much more gold.
Actually, annoying thing when I'm sharing the screen is I can't see the chat, so I'm going to come back again, so I can see that. I've shown you the key thing from the slide. So I didn't expect it to be this colour. It was quite surprising. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just surprising. I normally expect a Sauvignon de Touraine to be a slightly deeper lemon than we saw from the first one, and lemon without being greenish or golden. But this one is quite golden. Now, let's get a whiff of this glorious wine. Now, this is real class. I'm very, very, very taken with this. And this is exactly what I wanted you to get from Sauvignon Blanc. Anybody gonna, I don't want to pick on anybody, so I'm going to pick on John there to say, what do you get in the nose of this one? Or Graham, I want people to tell me what they get from their nose of this one.
Grass, definitely.
Yeah.
Mikhail?
Melon? Probably.
There's no wrong answer here. These are quite subjective. Okay, smells, as I said, it's hard to get that.
I thought it smelled peppery.
Peppery, perhaps, say it.
Yeah, very quick.
A lot of citrus, like lemon and lime.
Did somebody say peppery?
Me,
Yes.
yes.
So I can't see on the screen. Can whoever did put their hands up? And was that white pepper, black pepper, or bell pepper capsicum?
Black. Yes, it just hit me as a sort of a very peppery, sort of black pepper, I would say. But I think now that somebody else has said citrusy,
I would say minty.
Minty. And I've got Ringley has said gooseberry, Julia has said grassy. You know, one nice thing about wine, and this is about the selection of wine that we have at Honest Grapes, is this is just a million miles away from the cheap sort of Sauvignon that you might pick up at a supermarket or a multiple store. What I really like is complexity in smell. I like the fact that everybody's disagreeing a bit, because the complexity is something to savor. It's something to relish in wine. It's something that makes it more interesting. It makes me want to come back to it. This is vinified and aged in stainless steel. It's deliberately designed to be drunk young. This is 2019, and it's what the French would call à point. It's perfect to drink now. Do not keep this wine. It won't get better. I get gooseberry, I get freshly mown grass, just a bit, not overpowering, but a bit of that. I did get a pepperiness. But I actually thought of it more as white pepper. And actually, if I was doing a blind tasting, when I smell white pepper, you find certain markers to remind you what grapes would be. And there's a grape which I forgot to put on the list, actually, of my 26, called Grüne which it's very hard to distinguish Grüne in tasting, blind tastings, often confused with Chardonnay or even Riesling by people. But this is far too aromatic to be any of those. But this is a fun wine. There's a lot to it. And now let's taste it.
There you go. Hold on to that.
Prizes for the loudest slurpers, by the way. So go for it.
Yeah, we should do a competition for it. That's glorious. This has got a much more pronounced acidity, but it's a lovely fruity acidity. Chardonnay tends not to show a fruity acidity. It tends to show a vinous, a grapey acidity, whereas this does make you think of gooseberries. Now Angus and Wingley have said gooseberries. It does make you think of green, slightly underripe fruit, but in a very pleasant way. This global warming has actually benefited areas like this that used to produce somewhat underripe, somewhat tart wines for an entry level, because this is just a humble Sauvignon de Touraine from a nice small producer. This is the grapes here have ripened nicely and led to something that's not plump and cooked fruit, but it's not tart. And it's very important to realize, okay, before we get all snobby about wine, that grapes are a fruit. You might have had them as a table fruit, okay? And when they're underripe, they are acidic and tart. When they're just right, they've got the balance of sugar and what's called phenolic ripeness. So they've sort of matured as grapes. They're nice to have as grapes. If they get overripe, they go all fizzy and horrible and squashy, okay? And we stop liking them again. It's like all my black bananas and things like that. So the art of picking grapes for turning into wine is the art of picking them at exactly the right level of sugar and acidity. And those are the main things that people measure when, that's what they're doing in the vineyard. They're looking at the ripeness of the fruit, and they measure it by the sugar level, the acidity level, and a few other things. But that is basically it. Okay, when is it just right? And that sugar is what in the fruit is what converts into alcohol. So when you hear a wine snob telling you about counterpointing the surrealism of the underlying metaphor and how this, all the ways it was made, to be honest, all I'm concerned about is you have wines that you enjoy, and this is wine I enjoy actually. And for I'd say, to be honest, Tom Harrow, my business partner, we're not big Sauvignon Blanc drinkers in general. So if a Sauvignon Blanc is going to make it on its way to our list, it's got to be something that gives an extra bit of zing and excitement. That's
right. It's probably just going to jump in and say there's no 100% right answer. It's like with the tasting, with the picking as well. There can be a stylistic choice. I think that there's some obvious things you can make. You can make some obvious mistakes, but there are more than one ways to make an enjoyable wine, even from one vineyard that's next to another. So there's ways to do it. Like Nathan said, there's some key elements there about getting the balance right, but balance can come from a few different things. So yeah, there's lots and lots of right answers and not too many.
Yeah, there's an art and a science, and people have mapped it out and mapped out sort of 43 different decisions you have to make in producing a white wine. But essentially you can split it down into viticulture and oenology. So what happens in the vineyard and what happens in the winery. And what they've done here is really very nice for what they're doing here. We'll move on to the third wine. So Sauvignon Blanc, I think, actually, not just bigging it up, genuinely, Sauvignon de Touraine, I included in this because this is a particularly nice example of an old world Sauvignon Blanc. So actually, I should say something about the difference with New World Sauvignon Blanc. If any of you have ever had a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, anybody had New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc here? Okay, entirely different from this. A lot of the same texture, but in terms of the nose, you get much more tropicality, lots of passion fruit. I have a bit of sort of synesthesia. I tend to get colours and numbers and smells all mixed up. It smells turquoise to me, which probably sounds ridiculous. Okay, but you tend to think of New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs as being blousy, very, very heavily perfumed. And by the way, good ones are very good. I'm certainly not putting it down, but it's a difference both in terms of the particular variants of Sauvignon Blanc they use, but also the different climate. I will try and cover much more about climate change and effects on wine in the third session of this series. I'll talk quite a lot because Honest Grapes is Green Retail of the Year multiple times. I'm a technologist, I'm an environmental investor. So for me, these changes in wine matter quite a lot. But if you go back to the Loire, and I said there were those three famous areas further down the Loire in the Centre area. So probably the most famous of those being Sancerre. Very pronounced differences between Sancerre, Menetou, Saint-Laurent and Puy-Fumé, with Sancerre being classically chalky in texture, grassy, quite like this in terms of smell, a classic sort of grassy herbal bit of gooseberry there. Menetou, Saint-Laurent, the most tropical and New Zealand of them, being big and blousy and usually lighter textured. And then Puy-Fumé with that famous gunflint nose, which is characteristic. And all of those villages are within spitting distance or literally spit across the river. Okay, and you go between those three villages. So it shows you the difference that climate, and in that case also aspect, which direction, which bank of the river they are, which way the vineyards face. We'll go on to our third wine now, and now for something completely different. Please put your hands together and pray, because we are about to experience our first wine from the god of the Mosel, the wizard of the Mosel, the most amazing winemaker in the world, Clemens Busch. And this is his estate wine, the Riesling, the Riesling Trocken, the dry Riesling. So, who here hates Riesling? Okay. Oh, boo. Who here thinks that all Rieslings are sweet and dilute? Okay. I'm old now. All of this Liebfraumilch and Blue Nun, Black Tower, all of that stuff, absolutely ghastly. I mean, having said that, my first ever wine tasting course, there were two students sitting at the back of the room, and the only two things they wanted to know about any wine, this wasn't Angus, by the way, the only two things that these students wanted to know about any wine was the price and the ABV. So they would just say, basically, how much alcohol can I get for how little money? And at the end of the course, I gave them both a bottle of meths. Okay.
Are you sure that wasn't me, Nathan?
I'm sure it wasn't you, Angus.
You're more disruptive than that, Pat.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But by the way, please don't drink meths. Back in the day, all people cared about was alcohol and price. But how can I get drunk quickly? We're not trying to get drunk quickly here. Rieslings. Why do we think of Rieslings as being weak and sweet? It's because it's for two reasons basically. First one is don't mention the war. Okay. Rieslings. Queen Victoria drank Hock on her holidays to Baden-Baden, and Hochheim am Main, which is where the word Hock comes from. So fun trivia fact there. In the year 1900, a top Riesling cost more than twice as much as a top Bordeaux in a London restaurant. And still, of the 50 most expensive wines in the world, 12 of them are sweet German wines. Okay, even more than Bordeaux and Burgundy. Quite amazing. Okay, it's just that we Brits we're hypocrites. Firstly, we never forgive anybody for the war. Okay, but hey, Britain doesn't have that great a record when it comes to invading other countries. Okay, I think Germany sort of got it to a fine point. Any Germans here? I lived there for 3 years, so we won't go down that alley. I love Wagner, whatever, but I appreciate they didn't have a perfectly unstained 20th century. The second part of it is that the German climate is so cold that conversion of sugar to alcohol stopped in the cellar, and your picking would be October, which is much later than the sort of August, September in France. Your picking would be October, November. You'd get the wine into the cellar, and it would freeze up. Where I lived in Germany, I had to park my car. I lived 900 meters up, so it wasn't quite a wine growing area. I had to park my car down the hill and trudge up the hill for 20 minutes for about 4 months of the year. It was that cold. Down by the river, it's not as freezing as that, but the cellar would be too cold, so the fermentation would stop. So you'd have a wine with less alcohol, okay, which was still half sweet. And you'd also have all of the wine festivals. Is there anybody German here, or anybody who's lived in Germany? All of the wine festivals, they would sell wine at about 5% alcohol that was still fermenting. I've forgotten the name, it's gone out of my head, but it's like a cloudy wine that was half fermented. So that's not the way of the future. And if any of you want to write this down, it's called the VDP. If you've really got your spelling in German right, it's the Verband Deutsche Prädikatsweingüter. Try saying that after a few drinks. The trade association of the top, yeah, Dale and Co, I can see you laughing. It's the Verband Deutsche Prädikatsweingüter. I'll spell that later for you. Or Luke will, or Angus will type it into the chat for you. But I'll just put VDP so that you know. Clemens Busch was one of the original members of this trade association who popularized dry German wines, fully fermented, usually to about 11 to 12.5, even 13% with global warming. And also in his case, he was one of the original gang of four who did organic winemaking in 1984, his first vintage, and then 2005 converted to biodynamic. And after we've closed the session tape, I will deal with extensively in our third session. Okay, now let's see it, sniff it, slurp it, savor it. We'll see it. Okay, and this was the one I expected to be a little bit more golden. This is the estate wine. It's from a hill called the Marienberg, as in Maria, St. Mary's Hill. There's a nunnery at the top called the nunnery of St. Mary. It's in a little village called Punderich. I've been a friend of Clemens's for over 20 years now, and his wines are amongst the most stunning in the world. This is just his entry-level wine. You have got a pale lemon again, slightly golden tinge. Annoyingly, actually, this was the one I expected to have the golden. Aye, well done, Luke. He's even got the umlaut on the A and the U. Well done, Luke.
That's definitely a copy and paste job, I'm sorry.
It was copy and pasted. I think I learned it for about 1 minute before my exam. So yeah.
You've actually missed the der in the middle. Verband der Deutsche Prädikatsweingüter. Anyway.
Oh, I've even got it wrong. That's
unfortunately.
Yeah.
So here we have actually, annoyingly, it's too similar in color, I think, to the Sauvignon de Touraine. I expected the first one to be the one with a tinge of green in the lemon, the middle one to be just pure lemon, and this one to have the tinge of gold. It's got a slight tinge of gold here. The smell how different that is. Now you've got to be able to tell me the smell that is, everybody. Who's going to go for it?
No pressure. Throw anything out there. Some fruit that we can smell. Something fresh.
Yeah. Honey, Patrick says. Lemon. Lychee, gosh, yes.
Am I done? Fruit salad.
Fruit salad.
Not fresh, not tinned.
Not tinned. Yeah, no, that's a good one actually, because there are some wines that do smell of tinned pineapple or tinned lychee or tinned fruit salad. More honey. Okay. So again, I've got complexity, and this is just it's just an entry level. It's his estate wine from this hill. The big thing I get, I'm quite surprised nobody's put this in, is quite a sour lime smell. Really, and Wingley, you said lemon. I actually get more lime than lemon on this one. Whereas I got more citrus on the Macon that we had earlier. Get lime. I do get a little bit of lychee. I definitely get some honey, just like a little, like almost like jasmine or something like that, you know, so like honey flowers, those sort of white flowers. I also get just a touch of sort of cinnamon and a little bit of what the Americans call candied fruit. So, and you definitely get this on the bigger wines from him, the Grand Crus and so on. You get quite a lot of like orange peel, mandarin, grapefruit peel, you know, all those candied fruit that you get at Christmas or you put into cake making, that sort of thing. And now we're going to the taste of this. So I think the lime becomes really apparent here. And the acidity of it is a very different type of acidity from the one we had on the Sauvignon Blanc. The Sauvignon Blanc gave us a much more obvious sort of fruity acidity. It felt much more like you'd had fruit juice, basically. Whereas the Riesling is back into Chardonnay land again. It's in the area of the blank canvas. And again, the blank canvas, if you remember I said about Chardonnay, was that Riesling is a grape that adopts the land it's on, the soil, the geology, the climate and weather, and the winemaking techniques. In this one, this is a young wine you're having. Rieslings are famously acidic. They last a long time. Clemens makes about 40 wines off this one hill. This is his most humble example. I can see, was it Julia? Who's the convert here? Yeah, Julia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Jancis converted me to dry Riesling years ago, and I'm grateful. Clemens Busch is a treat. So I know if I won't identify who said they were a Riesling hater before. I normally on the first one, my trick question is to say who hates Chardonnay, and then people say, oh, I don't like Chardonnay, but I really like Chablis, or in this case, I like Makon Village. Those are all Chardonnay, of course. My way of looking at wine is not to hate anything. There are things I like more than others. You will not be tasting a Chablis in these lessons. You will not be tasting a Carver, okay? I actually wrongly said in a tasting the other day that I hate Chablis, and actually Tom played a trick on me and got one of our producers to send me all of the Chablis to taste. It's just my style is different. It's not that I hate it. They were lovely wines. And academically or independently to be able to review wines, it's almost better to taste wines that aren't your favorite style so that you can be more objective about them. But when it comes to Burgundy, that Macon style we had as the first one, or indeed Meursault and Chassagne-Montrachet, Saint-Aubin, Saint-Romain, in other words, I can name a mass of other white wines from the Burgundy region that I drink before I drank that blasted Chablis. It's not that Chablis is bad, and a lot of it's really good. It's just not my personal style. All of you are allowed to have your style. Okay, it's acceptable. Just because Nathan says something is good doesn't mean you have to like it. How we select our wines for our wine club, and some of you are members who already know this, is certainly, it was easier outside of COVID times, but basically we're like an Etsy for wine. Tom and I know winemakers from all around the world. Our team do as well. We create a short list of wines that we think are potentially good enough to come onto our sommelier selection. And then we use the wisdom of our club members to actually taste them, try them and give us feedback. And that allows us to feed down onto what should be a list of just 150, 200 wines. We're not looking to have the alphabet soup of wines. We're just looking to have a sommelier selection, a restaurant list of great wines. Okay.
Sorry, just before we move completely away from the Riesling, you just quickly share your screen for the last bit of the, the map, while presumably everyone's still got a little bit of the Riesling in the glass. A bit of context geographically, but please carry on with the description. I think we've got the Mosel Valley just here somewhere. It's not the clearest picture in the world, and you don't need to be able to read all of that.
Basically, where I lived was in Wiesbaden here, and there's Frankfurt, where the airport is, and Mainz. So that's Rheinhessen in wine terms. That's the Rheingau. And the Mosel goes between Koblenz here and Trier down here, along the wiggly Mosel down to Luxembourg. And the Marienburg Hill the train between Koblenz and Luxembourg runs through the hill. So if you're standing over this end of the hill, there's actually an archway and you can see the trains rattling through. They're just little trains. They go through about twice an hour. It's the most glorious place. And you've been there, Luke. You went there last.
Well, yeah, I took this photograph, and it's it actually. I wish it was like higher resolution. Actually, I wish it was slightly larger because it is beautiful and carries on slightly further over to the left, out of shot. But almost all of those vineyards belong to Clemens, and then the winery, sorry, and all of the rest of the operation is just this other side of the river, and it's a really very picturesque. Yeah, everything about it just kind of feels very, very small and very perfect. But he certainly has a big reputation and a lot of kind of cult following. And just so you can see these grapes here, why I put those in, so all the different stages of Riesling ripeness, even right at the end, you can pick at this sort of green level and make nice sort of crisp dry wines, and then they get really, really sweet as you go further later harvest. And higher concentration of sugar and everything like that.
And here's the village of Punderich in the Middle Mosel, with Koblenz up here, and Saar and Luxembourg and France down here. Yeah, so Trier to Koblenz is the road, the Autobahn 60, if I remember correctly. And here's Bernkastel. Other famous villages in the area, Peasport. So if you've heard of Peasporter, but actually the top Peasporter, again, name much derided, but actually superb top wines. I hope those of you who put their hands up and said we hate Riesling, I hope you've opened your minds and at least found something that was different, challenging perhaps, but different and enjoyable. And that should be the whole idea of these tastings. As we've sort of reached just past 7:30, and I appreciate you'll all be wanting to stop listening to me, rush away, and go for your supper. What I want to do, I think this is the right ones to do. I just want to show you. Oh no, sorry, it's here. Where to find these on our website and the other tastings we do, and we will hang around, by the way, for another 15-20 minutes. But if any of you are in the middle of having your supper cooked for you, and you've got a partner or somebody saying either the dinner. The dog's in the dinner or the dinner's in the dog or whatever, feel free to log off and join us again next week. So this is the Taste Lab kit. So I think you should be able, is it shared? Can you see this? No. Are you seeing Taste Lab now, Luke?
Yeah, we're seeing Taste Lab, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
so here's me dressed up as some kind of scientist anyway. And here are the Taste Labs, the Taste Lab 4, which has got 4 French wines, Taste Lab 6, which has got the same French wines and 2 Italian wines, the Luxury Taste Lab kit, which has got Champagne, Burgundy, Bordeaux, Sauterne, a white Burgundy, red Burgundy, and a Châteauneuf de Pape, all in half bottles, and they're self-guided, so they come with a video. I'm just about to do the video for the German set, which is 5 German wines, all from Clemens Busch, although I will do even another one with some reds as well. If I look at our events, go back to the events, those of you who've just got sessions 1 and 2, you can book sessions 3 and 4 here, okay? As you've seen, we are videoing this, so if you want to see it again, or have friends who want to join in, see you later. We have tomorrow the last of our Burgundy sessions with introduction to Burgundy en primeur, so the new season Burgundy. And then on the 25th of February, there's a Meet the Grower session, but with Dominic Huber, who's a German guy living in Spain, making some of the top Priorat in the world, red wine from the, well, actually, I was going to say Grenache, but they're not all Grenache grapes in his case. I think, Luke, we tend to think of Priorat as being Grenache. In his case, they're not all Grenache. We're just about to announce 3 more grower events in Burgundy, and they will go up very shortly. So there's a lot more, there's other stuff coming up. I can see somebody was asking about how much these cost. That's why I'm showing you live on the website. You go to the sommelier selection here, and you can, you go to the sommelier selection here, and you can choose the wines by country, by type. Okay, so my whites and my reds, or in the search box here. So if you wanted to find the Presle, here we are. You just type it in, it'll show up. There you are. So £13.40 was that wine. So you can see very easily. We're not a big discounter, but because it helps us and the environment, we sometimes do small discounts when you're taking 6 of them. So there's the Sauvignon de Touraine we had. I've actually lined up one I wanted to show you. This is the range from Nadine Ferrand. She does lovely Saint-Verin, Puy Fusset, and even a bag-in-box, which is very nice. If you've got lots of friends, you're that thirsty, but please don't do so. Keep the social distance around the box. And then Clemens Busch, need I say more, because we have a wide range of his. If you want to find the growers, you just go to about, where are we? Should be about, and oops, oh no, it's just, that's not working. Okay, we'll just do Clemens Busch this way. So here is the Clemens Busch Riesling Trocken 2018, £16.50. And then when you want to navigate on the website to find the grower, so it should, I think they're changing something tonight actually, but here's the wine we tasted. We call it a fragrant white. I was supposed to cover styles, but we divide our whites into crisp whites, rich whites, fragrant whites, and wild whites. So we've had a crisp white with the Makon Village, and then a fragrant white with the Sauvignon de Touraine and the Riesling Trocken. And then if I want to see more about the grower, here is Clemens, most lovely guy, as I've said, and I can see his profile, and then a wine list of all of his wines that we have will appear below. We've got 15 wines from him, so we've got quite a selection. And there's a discovery set, by the way, here, which we've got a case of 6, and I'm just about to launch. I've got to video it in the next couple of days, the half bottle set, so that gives you an idea. Right, I have done a lot of talking. Please, anybody who wants to go away for supper, please feel free to, and everybody else, please unmute yourselves and ask lots of questions.
Yeah, right. So I've put the prices for tonight's wines on the side there, so it's nice and obvious for you to see. But hopefully you can navigate on the website and have a bit of a browse around. Anyone who's not done that before, but yeah, please open for any and all questions. Definitely nothing's too simple, and hopefully nothing's too complex or complicated either. We should be able to answer questions from everywhere.
Why is Riesling in a different shaped bottle to other wines?
Yes, a lot of, I mean, some bottle shapes and styles come for several different reasons. A lot of it is history. The fluted bottle, and actually the other two were in what's called Burgundy bottles. So there are several different shapes of bottle. The fluted bottle was you generally find in Germany and Alsace in France. Some other countries have adopted it. Generally, not exclusively, but generally you think of it as being single varietals, so single grape varietals in them. But really it comes from history. The second reason for changing bottle shape is marketing. Often you find big, heavy bottles with big dimples in them to show people how rich you are and that you can afford a heavy bottle. That sounds great. And sometimes it's environment, and I'm a big favour of lightweight bottles and actually screw caps. Nobody asked me, but I'm a scientist. I think screw caps, the technology behind screw caps has improved vastly, and it's less of a faff and less environmentally bad than opening corks, although a lot of corks are nowadays recycled and things like that. So yeah, Graham, it's style, it's fashion, but history is where it originated. And we will, you'll see in your cases, in all the wines, you've got lots of different styles of bottle in this miscellany. Patrick has asked, how long will these last in the fridge? So, Alfred, can you get me the vacuum in, Alfred? Sorry? Can you get me the vacuum in? Yeah. I forgot to have a vacuum in next to me. These will last no more than tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, probably. So tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. If you don't have any equipment, then stuff the cork back in or screw the cap back on. But these things, vacuum bins, are quite cheap. It's a little pump, and you put the rubber stopper in the top and pump it until it clicks. Don't pump it beyond the click, because you're pumping those lovely aromatic molecules out. So you pump it to the first click. And then all of these wines should last you tomorrow, the day after. Where are we? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. God, you know, you're lightweight if you were not going to get through these. But anyway, there you are. But certainly tomorrow, Friday. I doubt Saturday, maybe Saturday. There's enough acidity in them. If you want to splash out, or you've got rich friends, buy a Coravin system, and a Coravin system has a needle that passes through. You can even get ones that go through screw caps, but archetypally that go through the cork, and they inject a mixture of gases, usually argon and nitrogen, to replace the air, basically. And that way you can keep wine for weeks, actually, using the Coravin. Okay, so I've never quite managed to get round to seeing the sense, but there again, I've got thirsty friends.
Yeah, so next week when we do the reds, it's can be slightly interesting to say. I don't know what anyone's experience is with it, but if you plan on keeping the reds for any more than a couple of days after we open them, if you put those in the fridge, they'll last a little bit longer as well. Obviously, they need to be taken out a good few hours before tasting them, but anything that's open will last a bit longer in the fridge. It's, always sensible. It doesn't happen very often, but if you don't plan on finishing a bottle within a couple of days, you can get a day or so more life if it's kept in the fridge.
And it's pretty sensible for next week's tasting to open the bottles half an hour to even an hour. You know, if you've got, it's good to have 3 identical glasses. So if what you could do is just pour your tasting portions into your glasses, try and control yourself for a little while, it just gives them a bit of time to air. In terms of snacks, I've got some like plain crackers, plain salted peanuts. I've got. I'm going to be having a lovely. Chinese dish. I've got aubergine and chicken hot pot, which actually goes really well with that Riesling, by the way. So just some nice Thai rice and some hot pot, which has got chicken and aubergines, a couple of chestnuts in there, some spring onions, and that Riesling. That's going to be really, really good.
That's the good thing about these tastings, I think, is because we have 3 different wines, you can hopefully cover the bases near enough. It'll be food friendly generally, but with one of them, it should suit dinner without you having to plan dinner around it too much, one way or another. But again, I think there's a lot of right.
That's definitely, you know, wine and food do go together. Let's try and answer the other questions from Jose or Jose. Glasses. I'm not going to get snobby about glasses. You know, I recently bought some posh glasses because they are nice. The biggest thing about glasses is to have a tulip shape, so in a shape that curves in, and a big bowl. And I actually, although I do have posh glasses now, I actually only bought the universal ones. I do have all this thing with, you know, Bordeaux glasses and champagne glasses and this and that and the other. For wine tastings, I take the universal Zalto glasses, but they're pretty expensive, about £35 each or something. But I bought a dozen of them because I'm bonkers, as a present for myself. And I do lots of wine tastings. But the main thing actually for these tastings would be a bigger bowl with an inverted shape. And you can get some quite cheap ones that actually just do the job perfectly. We sell the Zalto ones online. Advantages, disadvantages compared with stems. It depends. Stems are quite useful if you have hands. Hands are useful for holding glasses. The one without a stem, you might use a straw, but you can't. It's not so good for wine tasting.
I find they get kicked over much less often as well. So
okay.
They have a lower center of gravity, I think. Is
any recommendations on wines from the UK? Gosh, that's a whole subject in itself. We have a marvelous selection of UK wines. We deal with 7 different producers. I'm going to tell you a secret here. In the past, mostly sparkling wine. In future, there's a lot of still wine coming on, still whites, but even still reds. Some really good still red wines coming along. I got married in October, and I had rosé English sparkling wine as my wedding wine, and then a bit of champagne as well later on, but mainly it was English sparkling rosé. I'll maybe cover a bit more on the third session, the effects of climate change, but the short answer would be look on our website, would be the direct answer. Those of you who aren't used to us, by the way, the reason we run this as a wine club is we are just very selective. We're not looking to have 10,000 wines. We just try to have a few nice wines on the website at any stage. So sommelier selection and club offers. In club offers, you get them by the 6, you buy them up front. But yeah, there's some marvelous wines. So in terms of our selection, I'd straight away head for Whiston Vineyard, Whiston Estate Winery, down in West Sussex. They're fantastic. Hoffman and Rathbone as well.
Yeah, I'd say just on that, the Hoffman Rathbone, the Pinot Noir, very limited production. We pretty much snapped it all up. I know Tom is a massive advocate for it as well. Their sparkling wines are amazing, and they're just kind of like a non-vintage Pinot Noir, and it's absolutely stunning. I definitely advise going to that. And then on the whites, there's nothing, but probably the best English white I've tasted is definitely the Chapel Down Kits Coty Chardonnay. Obviously,
Chapel Down. So Chapel Down, you'll see in the supermarkets, but that's more their bulk wines. Yeah. We only deal with their small scale production, single vineyard wines like Kits Coty. They do a great. We call the Spackers, the Spackers. That's great as well. John, whose surname is John, aptly named Fowler, asks which of the wines will go well with his Confit Dark. So I'm just going to cluck on that one.
I think, well, you were saying Riesling goes with everything, which it does. So I think,
Riesling goes with everything. I think, I mean, frankly, remember, the thing about Confit Dark is that it's cured in its fat and it's quite salty and you've got the skin to it. So I actually think that all of these wines will actually struggle a bit with it. It's not the most natural pairing. So just try a bit of each and see what you think. I probably say that the Riesling would probably go better. And one of the things that I'm planning to do with, one of the things I'm planning to do, we did once in the past, and I'm planning to do once the world opens up again, is to do a Riesling and meat tasting. Riesling goes tremendously well with veal, with rack of lamb, with chicken, with kidneys. I mean, it really is tremendously versatile with meat. Apart from which, I can just drink Riesling with anything, but I'm a bit of a nut on that, so probably better leave that.
Yeah, I'd say the Riesling and the Macon would probably be definitely worth trying. The Sauvignon Blanc might not quite stand up, but it's definitely worth a try. Like you said, try them all.
A good thought for you, by the way, is about acidity and which wines go with food. We'll do this a lot more next time with the reds, but the acidity of white wine goes well with the fat of cheese. So actually, white wines go better with most cheeses than red wines do. I'm doing a cheese and wine tasting tomorrow where I pair and I mispair. Actually, Angus and Luke, you'd love this one. I've deliberately chosen, I've got, again, a Clemens Busch, guess what, from Rotenschiefer. I've got a Tawny Port, and I've got the, oh gosh, what's it called? The Marolino di Scansano. So it's Sangiovese, it's Sangiovese with a bit of Syrah, isn't it? From Castello Romitorio. And I've paired and mispaired them. So I've chosen cheeses that go brilliantly. One wine goes brilliantly with one cheese and terribly with the other two cheeses. And it took me ages to get the pairings right and the mispairings right. And my basic idea is to show everybody how pairing sometimes works and doesn't work. But back to white wine, think about pork and apple or orange and dark, okay? These are both cases where the acidity of the fruit cuts through the fat of the meat. With confit, it's a bit harder because you've got the textural concentration and you've got the saltiness of it. So frankly, I think they'll all struggle, but I'd try it. You've got a bottle's worth. Although you all look as though you've drunk all of them already. But, there you are. What can I say?
We strategically put these generally on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. We don't get too many on Fridays because they do carry over to the more kind of convivial evenings of the week, I like to think. So hopefully no one's going to struggle to get through all 3 bottles, but hate to think of anything going to waste. But keeping with the food theme, if you can make a sauce out of any of these, it seemed a shame. But if you get to that fourth day, then maybe throw them into dinner and just add a bit of something. Yeah.
Cool. Anyway, John, you'll have fun trying that. I really love confit duck. Actually, it's there's a Scottish company called I think it's Scottish, Donald Russell, who does like meat on the internet and stuff. And we also work with is it called Dorset Meat Company?
Dorset Meat Company, yeah.
They do lovely stuff. And the wine and cheese I'm doing tomorrow is with some lovely people, a guy called Andy Swinscombe from Courtyard Dairy, and they do some really, really lovely British cheeses, which I pair with everything. So wine and food. What could you ask? What could you ask for? What could you want for? Cool. I can't see any more questions in the chat. Any more questions from the team?
Anyone want to shout anything while we're all still here?
Well, if there are no more questions, I hope you've had a pleasant evening. I've shown you where to find the other sessions on the website. I think all of you have got sessions 1 and 2 at least.
We should be seeing everyone next week.
If you haven't booked sessions 3 and 4, the next one is next Thursday?
That's right, yeah. They're all Thursday after this week.
The other ones are all Thursday. Today is Wednesday. Okay. It was just because I was doing a cheese and wine thing tomorrow. It was just like the order things went in. So we've got next Thursday. So you've got 8 days to find out how long those white wines last. Okay.
Or to recover, I don't know.
Exactly. Please feel free to contact any of us. You can reach Luke at honestgrapes.co.uk, Angus at honestgrapes.co.uk, and Nathan or nathan.hill at honestgrapes.co.uk. You can reach us there. This is a bit educational, a bit fun. I hate snobbery in wine. Okay, just relax, enjoy yourselves. None of us are, for all of us, this is our 14th Zoom meeting of the day. So enjoy yourselves in your wine therapy. Have a look at some of these wines, and I'll see you all tomorrow week. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely time in between.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Cheers, guys. Good night. Cheers, Dawn.
Yeah.